Hello everyone, Joe from Central Jersey Conrail and N-Scale, and welcome back. So this video, we're going to be operating the SA-35. But before we get started, I want to go over our comments from our last video, operating the SA-31. So our first question came from Greg Brzezinski. So Greg was asking, when I was pulling the loads out of the freehold lumber yard, how come I didn't pull them all the empties at once? And the reason for this was because I don't have enough track laid around the curve. So we're only dealing with a real short track. So that's why I broke it up into two moves. Ideally, realistically, you would have pulled all the empties out in one shot. So thanks, Greg, for following along and asking some questions. Okay, so our next question comes from Mike Simmons. And Mike Simmons has a two-part question. The first question is, early on in episode 3, I had called all these trains WPSA trains. And the W in the Conrail system, W stands for way freight, P stood for Philadelphia division, and then SA would have stood for the originating yard, and in this case Brown's. Brown's yard is indicated on the Conrail system by the term SA. So then in episode 8, when I was searching for ZTS maps on multimodal ways for my planning purposes, I came across the timetable. And in that timetable, I determined that in 1988, the Jersey division was still active. It still hadn't been absorbed or rolled into the Philadelphia division. So with that information in hand, I went back and changed all the train names to WJSA, and the J stands for the Jersey division. So that's part one of your question. Second part of your question, Mike, Sayrehurst secondary. Early on, I ran a naming contest to help me name the layout because I felt that I shouldn't, because I was taking the freehold secondary and the southern secondary and kind of merging them together, I felt that it needed its own name because that little portion of it is kind of freelanced. Everything else about this layout is as close to the prototype as I can follow, but except for the fact that I'm sticking those two lines, the freehold secondary and the southern secondary, together to make one continuous line. So the winning submission was Sayrehurst secondary, and the way that was brought about was the railroad starts in Sayreville and terminates in Lakehurst. So we went with Sayrehurst. So hope that answered your question, Mike. Thanks for keying in and asking. So the next comment comes from Craig Heinrich. Craig was saying that he felt like the session was a little rushed. So I'm going to try and slow it down as much as I can in these sessions just to give you guys a little more time to kind of absorb all the information. So I didn't do that on purpose. It's just kind of the way it was running and the way it edited out. So thanks for following along, Craig. And so the last recommendation was from Mike Simmons again. And what Mike was asking is if, in the beginning when I'm talking about the train, if we can flash up the map. So from here on out in the operations video, I'm going to put that map up and I'll trace the route on the map so that you can follow along, kind of get an idea geographically of where it is. Okay, so let's talk about the SA-35 a little bit. So prototypically, the SA-35 would originate out of Brown's yard. It would travel down to the North Jersey coastline and then head all the way down south on the Jersey coastline to Bank in Red Bank, New Jersey, where it would cut off on the southern secondary. And then it would service all of the industries on the southern secondary all the way down to Lakehurst. But here on the Sayrehurst secondary, the way that the SA-35 is going to run is it's still going to originate out of Brown's yard, but it's going to travel all the way down the Sayrehurst secondary to Toth. And once it reaches Toth, it's going to cut off northward to head up to service the industries between Toth and Farmingdale all the way up to Red Bank. Now all of this territory is going to be represented by hidden staging, and that hidden staging is what we just got done finishing up on in episode 17. So this session, I'm going to be showing you all the paperwork that we need to do to operate the SA-35, and then I'm also going to show you how the staging yard is going to be utilized during an operating session. So this way you guys can get a better idea than our little demo from episode 17. Okay, so we're going to pick up the SA-35 at Toth. The SA-35 has already traveled down the line and is waiting at Toth for its new orders. So we're going to cancel Form D C-101, which gave a track authority to get down to Toth, and we're going to issue the new Form D C-102. So if you take a look at Form D C-102, it's 2 C&E number 2808, the SA-35. Circle line 2, operate in both directions on single track between Toth and Bank. Dispatcher's JD, and we're going to make time effective 16:35 on the fast clock. Okay, so let's go over our switch list today. So our switch list, it says that we have 4 cars to set out and 4 cars to pick up. So we're going to be setting out a tank car, a refrigerated box car, a covered hopper, and another box car on Southern Secondary Staging Track number 1. Then we're going to be picking up 4 cars off of Southern Secondary Staging Track number 2, and that consists of a covered hopper, a coil car, and 2 refrigerated box cars. Okay, so now that we have all our appropriate paperwork in order, our train's in position at Toth, we're going to go ahead and move the turnout so that we can proceed on to the Southern Secondary. So as you can see now, it's going to be this is going to be the hidden portion here. We're going to be using view blocks and stuff so you won't see this, and then it goes down below grade. So the train's coming in at the bottom of the grade there, making this last turn before it enters into the staging yard. Okay, so before we come into the staging yard, I want to show you the panel. So we can see here that this white LED is not illuminated, so that means that the track is clear. And you can see I have my camera set down here so that I can see what's going on in the camera view. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull my train in on track 1. Okay, so now what I've done is I've come back here so you guys can see the panel. You can see now that the white light is the white LED is illuminated, so that's telling us that there's something occupying that track. And if you look at my camera here, I'm going to go ahead and switch my camera view so I can see the other end of the staging yard. So now this will allow me to move the train so that it can uncouple. Okay, so everyone here is going to be watching from this high angle, but I'm going to be operating off of my camera on the bottom. I'm going to pull forward. Stop right about there. And attempt to relieve the slack action, and it uncouples and the locomotive clears. So now what I'll do is I'll move my locomotive clear of the turnout and stop here. Okay, so now that I got the locomotive in position, those cars are now sitting on track 1, and those are going to be considered now delivered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and update all my switch lists and get my car cards and put them in the bill box for being set out. Okay, so now that the paperwork's in order, what I'm going to do is now we're going to reposition our locomotive over to track 2 to pick up the cars that have already been staged for the return trip home. Okay, so now that we have all our paperwork in order, we're going to go ahead and align our turnout so we can perform the runaround, get an escape out from where our train is staged. I have to change my camera view so I can see. So now that we're in the clear, I'll go ahead and align our turnouts, and I'll also switch the turnout so that we can back into track 2. And here we come. And we got a good coupling. So I'm going to back up a little bit, get clear that magnet. All right. So now we're in a good spot here. We're going to go ahead and get our paperwork caught up on. Okay, so now that we're tied onto the cars that are on track 2, I'm going to go ahead and update the paperwork. So we're going to mark those cars as picked up, and then I'm going to pull the cars from the bill boxes. Okay, so now I have the cars for the bill boxes. I get that and my paperwork together, and the train will be ready to return. Okay, so just to show you, on the panel here right now, this LED is burnt out, so that's why this one isn't indicating. And you can see that this LED here, that we have cars on track 1. And then I've switched my camera view so I can see where I'm at down there now. So now what I'll do is we'll start getting the train headed back to Toth. Okay, so we're all set with our paperwork. We're gonna start pulling out. Okay, we'll start heading upgrade. All right, and we'll just stop here, and then at this point in the session what we would do is we would contact the dispatcher so we can cancel Form D C-102, and then we can get our C-103 issued for our return trip back to Browns. Okay everyone, so that's the SA-35. So now, just to explain what's happening here, the SA-35 here on my layout is only servicing the industries north of Farmingdale. The industries that were south of Farmingdale on the southern secondary are being represented on the layout, not in staging. So just to kind of maybe clarify, hopefully, I don't know if people are confused or if I'm confusing you, but pretty much what I've done is Farmingdale, as I broke it in half, and north of Farmingdale on the southern secondary is being represented by the off-track staging, and then all of the industries south of Farmingdale on the southern secondary is being represented on the layout by the Sayrehurst secondary. So that's where the freelance portion of this layout comes together, is because I'm tying in the freehold secondary into the southern secondary there at Farmingdale. So that's kind of, hopefully that explains everything. Okay, so the reason that I've represented the northern portion of the southern secondary on the layout and instead of just cutting it out altogether was because there's some important industries north of Farmingdale that I wanted to represent, because I wanted that extra traffic flow. And you had 3M over there in the Collingswood section of Howell. You had 84 Lumber right there on Route 34 in Howell. And then the big one that I'm going after is Earl Ammunition, because there was some traffic going in and out of there. So by doing this little hidden staging yard, I've been able to add that extra traffic, and it's working out really well. So what will happen now is at the end of the session, I will go down and I'll move those cars that we left on track 1 and move them over to track 2. So this way the staging yard is set for our next operating session, and then it'll just work the same exact way. So the way I envisioned this SA-35 operating during an operating session is, that the operator would call, he'd come in the layout room, run the train down, and then get everything turned and get ready for his return trip, and then he would be held in the staging yard and wouldn't come up like I did. Like I brought the train up and I'm sitting at Toth. but I'm not going to allow the operators to do that. They're going to have to stay in the staging yard until a fixed amount of time runs by, and then they can call for their return trip form date. So as you can see now that we went over how it's going to work, and now I've explained to you the traffic flows around it, I hope that sheds a light on why I did what I did. And now that I've operated a couple times, I'm very happy with the way it came out. It actually worked just the way I envisioned it. So I think this is going to be a great addition to the layout, and it's going to get us a couple more industries that we can move some cars in and out of, and we can still service the big one, which was in my mind is Earl. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed following along the SA-35, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.